Long before temples of stone, long before written scriptures, long before kings and prophets, there was the forest, the river, the mountain, and the flame, and in the breath of the wind, in the cry of the eagle, in the whisper of the leaves, early humans saw something more than matter. They saw spirit, they saw life, they saw the presence of the unseen, and thus began the oldest faith of all, the belief that everything had a soul. Animism, often described as humanity's earliest religion, is not a faith with prophets or commandments, nor a doctrine carved in stone, but a worldview, a way of being in which every element of nature is alive with meaning, infused with spirit, and bound in relationship with humankind. Emerging in the deep mists of the Paleolithic, animism shaped the daily existence of hunter-gatherers, guided rituals at caves and firesides, and inspired the myths that would later grow into the great religions of civilization. To understand animism is to step back into a time when the world was not divided between the sacred and the profane, when spirit did not dwell in temples alone, but in the river, the animal, the tree, and even the stone beneath one's feet. The world of early humans was one of danger and wonder, a place where survival was never guaranteed, and where every hunt, every storm, and every season carried both threat and blessing. Imagine a small band of hunter-gatherers gathered around a fire at the edge of a dense forest, listening to the roar of thunder across the valley. The sky flashes with lightning, and the ground trembles beneath them. To modernize, this may be explained by science, but to them it was the voice of a great being, a spirit speaking from the heavens, a presence both feared and revered. In such moments, the seeds of animism were sown. The Paleolithic hunter looked upon the animals he hunted not as mere resources, but as fellow beings, each with a soul, each with agency. When a deer was killed, rituals were performed, offerings were made, apologies whispered, for the deer was not simply meat, it was a gift, a spirit that had allowed itself to be taken and must therefore be honored. In cave paintings at Lascaux and Altamira, we see not only art but prayer, depictions of bison and horses, not as decorations, but as invocations, as acts of communication with the animal spirits themselves. Everywhere, the animistic worldview extended its reach. Stones were not inert objects, but could be dwellings of spirits. Mountains were guardians of the land. Rivers were living beings whose moods brought either abundance or flood. The sun was not a ball of fire in the sky, but a radiant being, the bringer of light and warmth, while the moon was a watchful spirit of the night, guiding hunters under its glow. Fire itself, born from friction or lightning, was a sacred presence, dangerous yet life-giving, a spirit to be treated with respect. This understanding of the world shaped not only survival, but meaning. Death was not the end, but a transformation, the spirit of the deceased joining the ancestors, watching over the living, guiding them, and demanding remembrance. Burial sites from tens of thousands of years ago reveal care for the dead, bodies laid with tools, ornaments, and offerings, suggesting a belief that the soul continued beyond the body, traveling into another realm where such things might be needed. Animism was not a system with fixed doctrines, but a lived relationship with the world. The shaman, often seen as the mediator between the human and the spirit realms, played a vital role. Through trance, dance, or the use of natural substances, the shaman journeyed into the invisible world, speaking to animal spirits, ancestors, or forces of nature, seeking guidance, healing, or knowledge. The shaman's role was both feared and revered, for they walked between worlds, carrying the burden of communication with the unseen. As humans spread across the globe, animism went with them, shaping cultures in diverse ways. In the icy tundras, spirits were seen in the auroras, in the animals that provided fur and food, in the glaciers that groaned and shifted with mysterious power. In the tropical forests, the dense canopy and teeming life pulsed with spirits, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree. On the savannas, the great herds and the wide skies were filled with presences, each demanding respect. Everywhere, the core remained the same. The world was alive and humanity was not separate, but part of a vast spiritual web. What makes animism profound is its intimacy with place. Unlike later religions that sought universal truths and commandments, animism was deeply local. The spirits of one valley were not the same as those of another, and each band of people lived in constant relationship with the spirits of their land. This fostered a deep respect, a sense of reciprocity. Humans took from the world, but they also gave back through rituals, offerings, and restraint. The hunter did not slay without thought, for to do so risked angering the spirit of the animal, bringing misfortune upon the people. The myths that arose from animism were not written, but spoken, sung, and danced. Around fires, stories told of how the world came to be, of how the first humans learned from the animals, of how the spirits of ancestors still walked among them. These myths were not just entertainment, but sacred teaching, binding the community together, passing on wisdom, and embedding the worldview of animism into every new generation. One can imagine the awe of a child hearing for the first time that the bird singing in the tree is not just a bird, but a spirit, carrying messages from the beyond, or that the dream they had in sleep was not random, but a visitation, a glimpse into the unseen world. Dreams indeed held special importance, seen as journeys of the soul, moments when the boundary between human and spirit thinned. Shamans interpreted dreams, guiding the people with the wisdom carried in visions. As millennia passed and humans began to form settlements, animism adapted but did not disappear. The earliest agricultural societies still spoke to the spirits of the land, praying for rain, fertility, and protection. Before great civilizations rose with their pantheons of gods, the animistic worldview laid the foundation, for gods themselves were once spirits of sky, earth, and water, magnified and personified into greater forms. Even as organized religion grew, animism endured, woven into local practices, folk traditions, and the everyday spirituality of people across the world. In Africa, Asia, the Americas, Oceania, and beyond, animistic practices continued, often blending with newer religions but never erased. The idea that rivers, forests, and animals hold spirit persists, reminding us that this worldview is not simply ancient but enduring. What is striking is how animism reflects a profound ecological consciousness. Long before modern debates about the environment, animism taught that humans are not masters of the earth but kin to all things, bound in responsibility. To kill without respect, to take without giving, was to break the sacred balance, inviting disaster. In our own age, as humanity struggles with ecological crisis, animism offers a vision both ancient and urgent. The recognition that the world is alive, that everything has a soul, and that respect for this truth is necessary for survival. The rise of animism, then, was not simply the beginning of religion, but the beginning of meaning itself, the attempt of early humans to make sense of their place in a vast, mysterious world. It gave them courage against fear, reverence before beauty, and connection in a universe that might otherwise seem indifferent. Animism was the breath of humanity's first spirituality, and its echoes remain in every religion that followed. For within the gods, the myths, and the sacred stories of later ages, the heartbeat of animism still pulses. And so, to walk with our ancestors is to remember that once the world was alive with spirit, that once every tree and every river and every stone spoke to the human heart, and perhaps, if we listen closely enough, it still does.